This is Peggy Ann Childers. That's the name I have to use. My real name is Margaret Ann Windsor, and I was kidnapped in 41 from Buckingham Palace, brought to Moulton, Alabama, where I was given the name of a twin, Peggy Ann Dempsey, and that's the name I still have to use. I found out in 1983 when I ran in a political campaign and was flown out to Mr. Flynt's because he had been shot in Lawrenceville, Georgia, when I was doing a book about mind control murders in 78 till I got a letter from the FBI June the 23rd of 79, ongoing investigation, national security involved. So obviously a lot of things have happened since then, but this is about all I can say. I've put this up about the mind control murders and my kidnapping and what's been done, in part at least, to me and my family and to my country, and to what's being done to you, the people in this country. Some of you are victims yourself, but that doesn't mean you tried to help me in any way. So let me just go to this. The mind control murders is in the motive. The reason they can't find a motive, I'm sure they'll come up with one, in Mr. Paddock of the Vegas shootings recently, is because the motive lies within the programmers. Mr. Paddock did not know he was programmed. How could he? Had he known and gone to a mental health professional or anything, he'd probably have been locked up. James Holmes of the Aurora, Colorado shootings is a perfect example. He in no way was mentally ill, yet they've got him locked up and diagnosed, I suppose, paranoid schizophrenic or something, giving him psychotic drugs. And I want to end on, just say this one, and I'm kind of going to let it go here, I think, not try to tell anymore if it's over or keeps on going. I can't do anymore because these are deliberately done that I put up. I do want to mention this, and here I was over in Bedford next door here, Virginia, some years ago, and I went into the police station there, and they set me down in a bench. It was kind of curved and it was almost empty. The hallway is kind of long, and their office is about, okay, the way I'm sitting would have been to the left. Now, they set me down deliberately in that little curved, the chair, bench, and behind me was a kind of large poster, big one. On it had all these FBI fugitives or people they were looking for to investigate for murders. And I looked at them while I waited on the police to come back out, and not one of them made any sense to me. They were just there. Nothing. Of course, it didn't tell much background, but it didn't ring a bell with me that they were under mind control or anything else. I think the point in sitting me there was just that. The ones I've told about were deliberately done and mind control used. And while I'm at it, there was a different time. I wasn't locked up or anything. I was just living on the Appalachian Trail to have a place to be, because after I was out at Flynt's in that political campaign, he helped me for a year with a car. And then I was out there, couldn't get a job or anything. Anyway, that was the reason that they came up to where I was camped. And this is just prior to Ian Zorings and Elizabeth Haysom going, okay, no, this was the time. Okay, they supposedly had killed Jens and her were University of Virginia students, and were wonderful people. He was a diplomat's son, German diplomat's son. Our paths crossed just before I went in the campaign in 83. He was a student at Lovett or Lovell, I think it was Lovett School, there in Atlanta. And I used to work for doctors there, and I used to do the books and reception and etc. And I used to write checks to the school because one of them at least, his three kids went to, it was a private school, so our paths crossed there because I was sent out there to the school on a temp job. So our paths crossed. And then back up here in Virginia, of course, they were charged with killing her parents over in Bedford County here next door, I'm talking about where the police sit me under the big picture. So I'm going to forward back to 87 when I believe it was 87 that the police come up there and got me and took me back down, and it was at night, and they scared me to death. They put all the lights on me. I wasn't under arrest or anything. My God, I haven't committed the crimes. I just told about them. But they took me down, and I was homeless, and they didn't lock me up. They set me in front of the jail, or the cell there. I remember they brought me coffee. I love coffee. And it was a long time before the policeman, they switched shifts, and he came and took me back to Roanoke. And I was better, let me put it this way, I was better off up on the mountain, Appalachian Trail, but that wasn't the point, because the very next day is when Jens Zorings was brought back in. He and Elizabeth Haysom had gone to the UK, London, right after the murders happened, and they were being sought the murders for killing her parents, which they didn't do. And I'm going to say this. Jens was supposed to have been released just prior to McDonald becoming governor of Virginia by Kaine, Kaine. Now, he's the Democrat that ran with Hillary Clinton. He was her vice president choice. And he had said that Jens Zorings could be released. This was 4 days prior to his tenure as governor being over, and McDonald taking over as governor. Now then, it didn't happen. McDonald overturned it, and then in return, they can say what they want to. McDonald was charged, had some charge, he and his wife. Anyway, I don't think any of the other governors, at least that I know, have been charged with anything. Anyway, I'm putting this up because that was MindControl murders, and everybody knows it. So these two people have been in prison, and I'm just giving you a timeline on here. But anyway, I'll get back to this and just let it go. There's a whole list of them, and it goes back to the Tesla files that I put over and over and over back in 1930, that you can cure an illness or create an illness. And they program people, and they don't even know they're being programmed. How could they? But they simulated it so that it can appear as mental illness or something, which is a total lie. And I can't believe that people have bought it. And furthermore, the psychiatrists and doctors have to know. And this has been going on a long time. They had MK Ultra before Congress in 1953, gave them a slap on the wrist, and nothing done since. So Congress has always known about my kidnapping, about the MindControl murders, all of it, and said nothing, but they want to take your guns away. Well, you can program a pilot, and this won't show up on anything either. You can do all of the screening at the airport or whatever. It's not going to show the pilot being programmed, because when I was flown out to Mr. Flynt's in 1983, I was in a special election to replace Congressman Dr. Larry McDonald from Atlanta, Georgia, Piedmont Hospital. And I'd written about him in the medical malpractice book that was unpublished, and they almost killed me April Fool Day of 80. I had a letter from the FBI, U.S. Attorney, ongoing investigation, national security involved. So now you fast forward to 83, and this Larry McDonald, the doctor, not the governor, it's a different spelling. Larry McDonald went down in the KAL that was shot down August 31st of 83. And I will say this, the plane KAL was on en route from Juneau, Alaska to Seoul, South Korea. And former President Nixon was on that flight. He was taken off prior to takeoff, so he had to know. And Geraldo Rivera was on it. I'm shocked that, well, maybe he can't, I don't know. It's controlled, the media is controlled by the very people that kidnapped me, the Rockefellers and Rothschilds, the Illuminati, the Kennedys, and some of my own family, Windsors. George the Sixth is illegal, Elizabeth is, so there you go. But anyway, I was flown out to Mr. Flynt's, and he did an article that I show in all the YouTubes and Facebook, and some on Google+. A lot of this is on there, the documents, and Larry Flynt, I'd never met him, but I knew his shooting in Gwinnett County, Lawrenceville, Georgia, was program shooting and done in patterns. And I was living at Moonraker in Marietta, Georgia, Moonraker Apartments. He flew me out there. I'd never met him, and this is in '83 when the plane went down and I became a candidate. And that was the first time I met him, and I was flown out there twice and spent 2 nights in his and Althea's home in Bel Air. And when I left, he furnished me a car for a year, and that was the last that I ever spoke with him. But I want to say this too. There was a lot happened, and I won't go into some of it. But you got Hugh Hefner, who was a part of the things that happened back then. His attorney, Arthur Kretschmer, used to be on the Playboy when you open it up on the editor where he's on the staff. So they just put the high up. I had written him when I was living at Moonraker because so much was happening. This is before I found out about my kidnapping, all right, and my real name. I found that out in late '83. I talked to Mr. Kretschmer, and he said, well, I've turned it over to our attorneys, and we're going to see if we can help you. I will say this. Right after I got the letter, this is fast forwarding about a year, I was living in Laurelwood, right up the street, still in Marietta, up the street from Moonraker. And I believe I'm correct, the plane with some of the staff of Hugh Hefner's was on a plane that crashed en route. They were moving the headquarters out to L.A., and it crashed. I think it was in Chicago, O'Hare. The reason I'm mentioning this is totally because it's kind of strange if you ever hear what just happened to me here. It's the timing. Hugh Hefner died. Now then, you've got O.J. Simpson, who was totally, as in Wallace Warfield Simpson, was supposed to marry my dad and married a double. It was a takedown of my father. I worked after they almost killed me in 1980, I was taken illegally back to Huntsville, Alabama, where I worked for the district attorney, Fred Simpson. Next job I had was for Doyle Duke, as in the Duke of Windsor. Now then, there's a little bit more to putting it together, timeline and all, but O.J. Simpson on October the 1st, right after Hugh Hefner, and you have to know what was going on, being done to me. O.J. Was released from prison. I have always said that, and told, the media all knows this, that he was programmed. And what was it? Well, then you had the mass shootings, and I can't remember. I think there was something else there, but that's about all I can do. I don't know if this is the last video I put up or not, but hopefully all of it's about to be told. I don't know. I certainly hope so.